resume our discussion. So I was talking about that we have these qubits in a quantum computer, and what's a qubit? Basically, qubit is a what we call as a two-level system. Okay, so this is exactly what we have talked about last time. That qubit is a two-level system. It has qubit means it has just two states. Okay, so in the line of our today's discussion, so what we call is it's a two-level system. That on that two-level system, okay, like as we don't call it now up and down, we can call it maybe plus and minus or something like that, but it has just two states. And qubit is the basic unit which stores the information in a quantum computer. And in fact, that is the difference between classical and quantum computer, that in classical computer we have the bits, while as in quantum computer we have the qubits, which have these properties of the entanglement and quantum superposition and many other properties. And they have a lot of things can be done with the qubits. And what are the gates, quantum gates on qubits? Are basically, at least some of these gates, or not the full set of the quantum gates, but some of these gates are represented by, or basically these quantum gates are basically polymatrices. So the polymatrices give us the quantum gates in a quantum computer which are acting on the qubits. So here we are using polymatrix formalism in a different, altogether different context, which is that of quantum computation and quantum information processing. And that's what we are trying to say, that the polyformalism is not something which is restricted to spin angular momentum, and that was the place where it got introduced into physics, but it's much more general than that. Okay, and I have just given you three examples. One of them is qubit. One of them is what happens in the magnetic resonance in an MRI diagnostic test. Similarly, Suppenhoff itself is one of those examples. Let's keep on, but there are many more examples which we keep on going on. And let me take one more example, which is that of you would have heard about these ones. The one thing we can also talk about, some examples from particle physics. So I don't know how many of you have heard that in particles, the elementary particles have another quantum number which is called isospin. Okay, and this isospin becomes important in nuclear strong and especially in the strong interactions. But this is like we have a spin as a one of the intrinsic degrees of freedom associated with the quantum matter. Similarly, with the elementary particles, which have we have more quantum numbers, like as we have mass, we have charge, we have spin angular momentum. Similarly, we have isospin as another quantum number associated with elementary particles. But isospin is entirely represented in terms of the polymatrices. The way we deal with isospin in particle physics is we represent this isospin as polymatrices, and makes sense because it is just a two-level system. And isospin has nothing to do with spin as such. It's a different kind of a property of elementary particles. Okay, similarly, on the same line, you would have heard about recently, lots of people are talking about neutrinos and all that. So neutrinos have one of the property that they do the oscillations, neutrino oscillations. And if you look at the neutrino oscillations themselves, so neutrino oscillation can be also understood, because oscillation means, you in quantum mechanics, oscillation is basically, it happens like this way. You have two states, and the system keeps on going from this state to this state. That's how the oscillation happens in a quantum mechanical system. Okay, so neutrino oscillation is also can be understood as a two-level system. And I am not giving you the full detailed discussion about all these because it will take us in a different direction. However, I would like to encourage you guys to look at these different examples and try to see, when you look at the discussion of them, when you see how people are understanding, how do we understand these various different examples in physics, you will see all of them are understood as two-level systems. Okay, similarly, you would have also heard about something called in your atomic and molecular physics, you would have heard about something called Larmor frequency or Larmor precision. Okay, so Larmor precision itself, or any kind of a spin precision, is basically, once again, how does it or I think it's also related to something called the Rabi oscillations. Okay, so all these different phenomena are basically manifestations of the fact that there's a two-level system. Okay, so what is happening in a Larmor precision, once again, you have a spin or a magnetic moment associated with the spin, and you couple it to the magnetic field. And then, because you cannot put all the three components, it has three non-commuting magnetic these moments, or three components of the angular momentum. and they are non-commuting with each other, consequently it starts precessing around one axis. Okay, and Rabi oscillation is the same. I mean, it's a two-level system, and the oscillations which result about the two-level system are called Rabi oscillations. Okay, so and I think one another example. There's a whole big list of these examples, but I think I would still like to mention two more examples. One is something called Josephson junction. So those of you who would have taken advanced courses in your masters, they would have come across something called a Josephson junction. So Josephson junction is a junction basically we made out of two superconductors. Okay, and then we let them connect, and there's a junction between these two superconductors, and then there's a current flowing between them. It can be AC, DC current depending on what. But this Josephson junction and many devices which we build on top of them, which we use presently in quantum computation also, and many other places, these Josephson junctions also can be understood as a two-level system. I mean, you write a Hamiltonian for the Josephson junction, which is basically two superconductors, then you can think of it as a two-level system. Once you rearrange the Hamiltonian in a proper way, you can consider it as a two-level system. And the last thing, which why I'm mentioning it, because this has something to do with my PhD thesis. So there's something called Kondo effect. It's a very important thing which happens in quantum dots. Okay, now this Kondo effect, what is happening in a Kondo effect is basically, once again, you have a two-level system which is basically a spin guy, and you let it connect. You connect this two-level system to a metal. Metal means you have free electrons. So if you let these two-level system, a one two-level system, and you let it interact with a metal which is just a gas of free fermions, something very interesting happens at high energy or a very low temperature. At a low temperature, amazing thing happens, that there's a formation of something called resonance. There's a resonance formation, and that leads to the enhancement of the current in quantum dots. Okay, however, the whole Kondo effect has been one of the very important effects which has been studied recently, and in fact, for solving the Kondo problem in physics, many medals have gone to the people. So, but essentially, if you look at the Kondo effect also, it's just a two-level system interacting with a metal. Okay, so all these various examples which I have given to you are tell us that in nature there are these two-level systems, realistic two-level systems, and all of them, this is what I'm saying, this is the main message, that all of them can be understood. The formalism to understand all of them is Pauli matrices. So that is that way. I just want to get this message across, that how general and how broad applicability the Pauli matrix formalism has. In fact, this is the building block, the for the quantum computation. Essentially, the building block of building a theory for quantum computers is based on Pauli matrices. Okay, now let's get on. So this is enough of talk about these various examples. Let us try to see why is it so. Let us try to prove a mathematical result. So the mathematical result which we want to prove is that, let us take any, because two-level system, its Hamiltonian will be written as a 2 by 2 Hermitian matrix. Okay, so let us, whatever we have said till now, so let's take this 2 by 2 level system. Okay, it is Hamiltonian will be written as, it will be surely a 2 by 2 matrix, but it will be a 2 by 2 2 cross 2 Hermitian matrix. Fine, we agree on that. It has got to be a Hermitian matrix. Okay, now if I am saying that any two-level system, whatever I have said, that any two-level system can be understood as Pauli matrices, so I have to show it mathematically that if I take any 2 by 2 Hermitian matrix, I can represent it as Pauli matrices. If we can prove that mathematically, and it's very simple exercise, then we can get ourselves convinced that if you give me any two-level system, whether it has something to do with supin or it doesn't have something to do with supin, I can always write it in terms of Pauli matrices. Okay, so let us get started on writing that stuff. Let me take my this is my Hamiltonian of two-level system, so it will have elements of this sort. Okay, and because it is Hermitian, it also means for us that A12 is going to be a complex conjugate of A21. Fine, so this condition will be also there. Okay, but we are going to prove it in any case. Let's say we have a general Hermitian matrix of 2 by 2. So what we can do here is we can write down H as, so let me try to write it this way. I will say, I will put it A11 plus A22 Okay, then I will write divided this way. Okay, so then I will write a basically what the area. First of all, let me explain the area. Area is I have these four guys over here. I have to build write these four matrix elements in such a manner that I can write down, I can multiply them. I will have coefficients getting multiplied by the polymatrices. But if we look, how do I arrange them? Let's say I will have I will have a polymatrix sigma z, which will have 1, 0, and 0 and -1. So what this sigma z will help me? It will help me to arrange the diagonal elements. Fine. Then I will also need this unit matrix 1, 0, 0, 1. This I will also use to arrange my diagonal entries for the like is this entry and this entry. To arrange these two entries, I will need these two matrices. And to arrange a12 and a21, I will need two more matrices. I will need sigma x, which is basically an off diagonal matrix 1, 0, 1, 1, 0. And then similarly, I will also need sigma y, which is 0 minus iota iota 0. Okay, so now it's just if you just think around it, you will be able, you can see that we can see that we can arrange our matrix elements in our Hamiltonian and just get them multiplied properly to these matrices, and we will get this Hamiltonian. Okay, so let me do that for you. So let's give it a try. Okay, so let us try the following combination. Let me see if I try, because sigma I am going to write it this way. Let me first write down a22. I can write down it 2, then I will write this way, and then I will write a11 plus a22 here, minus times divided by 2, and I write it sigma z. Let's first of all write, let's see what do I get out of these things. So if you can see what I get, because this is a unit matrix, so I will get a11 plus a22. Okay, then 0, then 0, then I will here I will get once again a11 plus a22. Okay, plus what I will get here is a11 minus a22, here 0, 0, and here I will get a11. This will be minus times a11, then plus times a22. Okay, so if we just basically combine them together, what we're getting, this and this guy goes here, and I get 2 times a11, and I have, because for that I have just divided by 2, and that factor goes, so I end up getting a11. Similarly here, a11 and a11 goes, I basically get 2 times a22, and if I divide it by 2, I get these two elements. So I have taken care of diagonal elements. Similarly, I use the same logic to get the off diagonal entries. Okay, so together we can do the calculation for the off diagonal in a similar manner. So together I can write down my any 2 by 2 Hermitian matrix can be written down in following manner. I will have a11 a22 divided by 2 I plus a11 minus a22 divided by 2. Then I will have sigma z, plus then I will have a12 minus times a21 here, plus times divided by 2, and then I will have sigma x, plus I can also do a11 812 minus times a21, here we will need to multiply by iota and divided by 2, and if you multiply by sigma y. So what we need to confirm that we get this thing, we just need to expand everything in terms of that. Likewise I did for these two first line. Same thing, if you expand it to rest of the two lines, we will see we get the original matrix. Okay, but this result is very important result for us, because what it tells us that, let's say this 2 by 2 Hermitian matrix, see 2 by 2 Hermitian matrix. So any 2 by 2 quantum mechanical system can be represented, at least it is Hamiltonian, can be represented by a 2 by 2 Hermitian matrix. And now we are saying that the same guy can be basically represented in terms of polymatrices, basically this set of matrices: unit matrix, sigma x, sigma y, and sigma z. So if you have this we can think of as a basis for this space of the matrices, and then we can represent these matrices in terms of polymatrices. Okay, and this is a very strong, very important mathematical result. Okay, now once we have that, so now important thing will be studying these two level systems basically gets reduced to studying and understanding the polymatrices, because I mean the matrix itself, later on when I calculate the eigenvalues or the eigen functions of the any 2 by 2 level system, it will be basically the same problem as I would have solved it for polymatrices. So essentially, if I know how to solve the eigenvalue problem for polymatrices, I can solve it for any general system. Okay, so I think that's why I'm saying it's pretty strong statement, because then it means I can all these different 2 level systems which I gave an example of, all those systems can be understood just by knowing polymatrices well enough. Okay, now so now the next order of business is what we want to do next, is once we have showed that, we want to play around a little bit about the system. So to get a hang of it, let us take an example. Let us try to understand why is it important, what is happening in 2 level systems. So let us take a very simple example, which is, let us take this uh, we have this situation that we have this spin, and there's an associated, let's say only one component of it, there's an associated magnetic moment. Okay, uh, sigma z, and that I just get it coupled to the magnetic field. Okay, so we just get it coupled to the magnetic field. Fine. So consequently, what happens is that because we are coupling to the system, to begin with, we had two states. We had up state and we had down state, and both of them had same energy. So we had two degenerate double degeneracy we had. So we had two degenerate states. And when we couple it to the magnetic field as expected, these two states will not remain same. Okay, one of them will have high energy and one of them will be lower in energy. Okay, let's say we have this E plus state and we have this E minus state, and then there's an energy gap delta between them. Okay, but in terms of the dynamics, what happens is that you can now, if you take this system, what I the from the mathematical result which we got, we can understand this system, and as we know, there's a also something called a Lorimer precision which results out of this phenomena. So we can understand this system as from the polymatrices, because we can write down this whole thing in terms of the polymatrices. Okay, what we need to do is that we can basically write to make it in a very simple notation. So I will write it as some frequency which can be taken from this magnetic moment, frequency times magnetic field. So we can write down our Hamiltonian of the form of some form like this, where omega b has something to do with magnetic moment and gyromagnetic ratio and all that. Okay, so but for us, for as of now, for our situation, so it will become just a 2 level system. Okay, so where we will have two states. So this whole system where we have a spin, angular momentum, at least one component of it getting coupled to the Zeeman field, and this, if I write down the states, I will have two states. Okay, so I will have because it's sz is coupling to this one, so I will have h omega naught divided by 2, and then I will have, this will be the eigenvalue. Similarly, this a Hamiltonian acting on the minus state, because it is only two states, it will give us h omega naught divided by 2 and the minus state. Okay, now so these are the two states, and as we can see, they don't have same energy as expected because of the presence of the magnetic field. So one thing which we see in this 2 level system, what happens is that the degeneracy in the presence of the Zeeman field, the degeneracy breaks down. Okay, this is one interesting property of the perturbations which we have to notice. So whenever we apply a perturbation to a quantum system where you had a degeneracy to begin with, due to the presence of that interaction, the degeneracy basically breaks down. You don't have a degeneracy anymore. Okay, and in absence, in what is it that takes place of this degeneracy? What happens in absence of the degeneracy is that something very interesting happens, that now you have these two levels. Okay, and earlier they were same state. What was happening? We had this degeneracy, which was important because we can use this degeneracy in many in quantum computers and many other places where we need degeneracies. Okay, like as quantum computation is one important place where we need degeneracies a lot. Okay, however, because of this, now degeneracy is lost. What happens is that, as you can see, we have two states now and they have different energies. And what happens is, because we don't have a time dependence in the system, this still is a stationary quantum system. And we can see that what happens, just a minute, we have two energy levels. So uh, what happens in this system is that it starts oscillating, like as we have these because we have the energy delta, which will be some factor of h omega naught. So we need this energy to make a transition from here to here, because it has only just two states, and a magnetic field is providing energy. It starts oscillating. Okay, so the system starts oscillating between these two states. And like as when you because it's a stationary system, that is the only dynamics which this system has. The only thing which it does, it starts oscillating between these two states, and these oscillations are similar what we call as Rabi oscillations. Okay, so this is the basic thing which happens, one of the basic dynamics which happens in a quantum system, which doesn't have any time dependence. It has just two states, and there is some energy being pumped into the system. It can be coming from any source, but in this case it comes from Zeeman field. And in this situation, what happens is it starts oscillating between these two states. Okay, and if we have the full-fledged spin system, and like as we study in atomic spectroscopy, and then we have all the three components over there, it starts also making these precisions, because they cannot come in the same direction. So we have to take care of the non-commutativity of magnetic these various components of the spin. So because of that, there's a Lorimer precision which maintains an angle between the rotation axes, but it keeps on oscillating. So in two-level system, the basic quantum dynamics, what happens is that it starts introducing the oscillations into the system. The system starts oscillating, even if there is no time dependence, nothing much is happening, but even then the system keeps on oscillating between two states. That is the basic stuff which happens in a two-level system, and many things can be explained between these, based on these oscillations. You will see even in Josephson junction, when you bring these two states together, two superconducting systems, what happens is that there's an oscillation between these two superconductors, and that results into the current. Okay, current between this junction. Now we want to see it, we want to get, okay, I understand physically, I understand this is happening, but I want to understand it slightly on a more mathematical point of view. Okay, so how is it that these oscillations are happening? Okay, so now let's take this our matrix once again, our second order two by two matrix. Again, we have this two matrix. So we will have A11, A12, A21, A21 and A22. Okay, with the condition, because it's Hermitian, which for us means A21 and A21 are related with each other, so they are Hermitian conjugate of each other. Fine, and these are the matrix elements. Okay, now what do I want to do here? I want to make a pause a little bit. So I want to say that the quantum physics, in a quantum physics formalism, okay, so we talk about vector spaces, we talk about linear operators acting on it. But what is it? Is that physical? Is that linear operator physical? What does it tell me about physics, quantum physics? And what is that vector space telling me about that quantum physics? Okay, so let me tell you, it is not the vector space itself, neither it is the linear operator itself that tells me anything about physics. That's a formalism which leads us to the physics. And what is it exact thing that has the physical significance that I can measure? Once I calculate that, I can go to a lab, do a measurement, and confirm myself that whatever calculation I have done, it's matching with the experiment. So what is that central thing that is physical in quantum mechanics? Okay, so it is what we call as eigenspectrum. So eigenspectrum has something to do with physics, not the just linear operators or their vector space or all that. It is the eigenspectrum, and eigenspectrum has two things. It has its eigenvalues, okay, and also eigenfunctions or eigenvectors. Okay, so let me call them eigenvectors. So it is this thing, the eigenvalues. And you would have already we already learned in our chemistry classes, we talk about the spectrum in hydrogen atom or some other molecular orbital, molecular chemistry, we study about the spectrum. So it is the spectrum which is quantum mechanical, so it is which is physical, I would say. Okay, so all the quantum mechanical properties are spectral or spectrous, they have. So let me make this point very clear. So the physics, quantum physics part manifests, what is the physics part in the whole thing? It expects is manifests in something called a spectral. It has, let me call it spectral manifestation. What does that mean? It means the physics wise, where does the quantum physics arise, where do you see quantum physics, is in the spectrum of that system. Let's say I have a hydrogen atom, I calculate it, I find that spectrum, and that spectrum tells me, okay, the first orbital has this much energy, that is the eigenvalue number one. Eigenvalue number two is the first excited state, second excited state, third excited state. So energy, the energies in the hydrogen atom are the eigenvalues, and the way the orbitals in the hydrogen atom are the eigenfunctions. So it is the eigenvalue and it is the eigenfunction that is physical. Apart from that, anything which you do which does not give you, which has nothing to do with, or which is not related to eigenfunction or eigen values, is a mathematical formalism. Why is it that important? That formalism is important because it leads us to eigenfunctions and eigenvalues. Okay, that way you can see quantum physics is all about finding eigenvalues and eigenfunctions. That is it. The problem of the problems which we solve in quantum physics is all about, it's an eigenvalue problem. So quantum dynamics is all about quantum, it's about eigenvalue problem. And in fact, if you go back and look at the title of the Schrodinger's, Erwin Schrödinger, the paper he wrote, the historical paper he wrote, the title of that article is, if we translate it, it's quantization as an eigenvalue problem. Okay, that is the title of that paper. Okay, so that way we know that eigenvalues are much they are in fact not fundamental, they are the crux. That is so eigenvalues and eigen vectors, they determine the physics. Physics is entirely, intimately, and entirely completely determined by the eigenspectrum. All other baggage we have, mathematical baggage which we use, it is just to arrive at that. Okay, now because we have a two level system, it's very simple. Why I'm mentioning eigenfunctions here, because we all of us can solve 2 by 2 matrices at least. Okay, so therefore what we would like to do, we want to understand the physics of this two level system. For us it means understanding its eigenvalues and eigenfunctions. And we will have today we have just mentioned it, but we will have a separate discussion. When I say eigenvalue, if I ask any one of you what is the eigenvalue, so what you guys will tell me, you will say, I will take A as a matrix and it will act on some state psi, it will give me some value E, and then it will give me psi again. Okay, that is the definition. You will tell me the mathematical definition of this is an eigenvalue equation. Okay, so fair enough, yes, this is the definition. But does this equation tell me, does this equation give me the significance which eigenvalues have or eigenfunctions have in quantum physics? It does not tell me. It does not tell me that. It just gives me some mathematical definition of an eigenvalue problem. But in quantum mechanics, it's much profound than that. What we are saying is that the entire quantum physics of any quantum mechanical system is completely determined by its spectrum, and this has not happened before. You don't, when you study quantum Newtonian dynamics, when you study Lagrangian Hamiltonian dynamics, when you study thermodynamics, when you study electrodynamics, you never talk about we never talk about getting eigenvalues and all that stuff. It looks like so, I mean, we don't mention eigenvalues, but when we come to quantum physics, automatically these eigenvalues starts popping up. You everywhere you see eigenfunction is, eigenfunction expansion, completeness of eigenfunction is, all that stuff starts coming up. Why is it that? Because quantum mechanics is spectral in nature. Quantum mechanics has something to do, not something, it has entirely, it has everything to do with eigenfunctions. So that way, getting the eigenspectrum and solving the eigenvalue problems, every problem which you solve in quantum mechanics is an eigenvalue problem. Like as you would have solved a problem for one of the simplest and most trivial problem in quantum mechanics which we solve, a textbook problem, is solving your problem for one dimensional box. That problem itself is an eigenvalue problem. Maybe you would not have noticed it, but we will come back to that problem and I will show you how that problem is an eigenvalue. In fact, not only that, you have to look now, from now onwards, when we study eigenfunctions in much detail, then I will tell you many things which you have done in physics and mathematics. They are basically, they are just ways of finding the eigenspectrum. Okay, so you will try to we will see how fundamental eigenspectrum is in physics, because it's all about, you will see many problems, what we have been doing is we did not realize we are looking at eigenspectrum, but that's what we have been doing. Okay, so but however here in this particular case, what we want to do is just to look at this two level system and we want to solve it. When I say we want to solve it, we want to find a way to get its eigenvalues and eigen spectrum. Understand? So let's take this simple problem and let's say we have this Hamiltonian. I'll take this Hamiltonian again, a 1 1 1 2 2 1 2 2, and I just want to get this eigen spectrum. As you can see, it's not that difficult to get it. So let us find a way to get it. But before that, before uh, I don't want to solve this matrix problem directly. I want to use the polymatrix. That is the main thing. So I want to write down this matrix first in polyformalism. Then I want to solve it because I know I can solve the polymatrices. I know the eigenvalues for polymatrices are 1 and -1. I know that very well, and we can easily calculate the eigenvalues for the polymatrices. To solve this problem or to solve any two level problem which you have, it may not be very simplistic, but you can always map it to these polymatrices. So that is what we have to do. We don't want to solve it just a plain mathematical way. We want to reduce this problem to a problem in polymatrices, then use the properties of the polymatrices to solve it. Okay, so and we have seen the representation. We know we can write down our this Hamiltonian matrix. It can be written down, we have just written down it as A11 A22 divided by 2, and then we have A11 minus A22 divided by 2 sigma x. Here we have this matrix, and then we have A22 plus A21. Here what we do, here what we can do is that we basically we can use the fact that it's Hermitian. So it's basically, it will become just a real component of a real part of A12. I'm sorry, real part of A12 divided by 2. Okay, then we will have sigma x, and here we will have imaginary part of A12 divided by 2 and sigma y. Why did I say real and imaginary? Because I have a matrix element which is I am adding another element to it, and both of them are complex conjugate of each other. And if you can prove to yourself, you will see that that element, what I'm trying to say is here A12, and if I take A12 conjugate, okay, then divided by 2 or whatever, you see for yourself, if you take conjugation, you will see this element is real. It basically comes down to itself. Okay, you can prove that for yourself, this element is real. And the other guy which we have A12 minus times A21, because of the Hermitian nature, you will see that guy is pure imaginary. So that's what we are saying. So if we have this two level system, and if we want to get such eigenvalues, we can write down it in this representation. Okay, and once we have this in this representation, so let me write it in this particular representation. So we can write it, if I write it this full way, so I will have it A11 plus A12, then I will have a real part of uh, uh, A12, and then I will have imaginary part of A12, and then I will have A11 minus A22. So just a minute, let me check whether I'm right. Okay, so or in other words, yes, that's right. So let's go ahead and let us, so this is the first step. We write down our any matrix, whatever we have, whether we write it for MRI system, Josephson junction, Neutrino oscillations. First of all, map it to the polymatrices, and once we have the polymatrices, what we do is that we take this matrix again. Let's take this and we solve its eigenvalue equation. E minus hi is equal to 0. And for our system, I will just write it rather because it's just a two level system, all of us can do it. So let us write down this way. So let me write down the determinant. We will have H11, or I'm sorry, I'm writing it A11 minus E. Then we will have this element, let me call it A12 here. And then this guy is A12 conjugate. And then we have A22 minus E. We can do it this way also. Okay, so once we write down this equation, you can easily see this is A minus E, and then we have A22 minus E. So I'm just writing it down. I think it's easy for all of us. Any of us can solve this equation. So then we have this guy, and because it's complex number, so I can write down it a12 conjugate whole square. That gives me 0, and if I expand it, it gives me a quadratic equation. So let me we can write down that quadratic equation will be, this will give me e square. Then I will have let me write it in final form, I will have it somewhere. So I will have a11 a22, okay. Then I will have minus times a11 plus a22 whole square times e minus I will have a12 whole square is equal to 0. Okay, so this is a quadratic equation. Okay, and we can solve this quadratic equation. We know how to solve the quadratic equation is. So this is the quadratic equation in the eigenvalues which we want to get. This is e square. So this is, we can write it ax square minus plus bx, that's the bx term here, and then these two guys over here will make our c component. Okay, and we know how to solve this equation. So we can write down two solutions. Let me write down E plus, this is that, because we have now two solutions in a two level system. Once we apply the magnetic field, we have two energies. So this is E1 is, we will get two energy states. And if there is no magnetic field, these two levels will be degenerate. So we'll write minus B plus minus. So I will write the final thing. You can complete the rest of the stuff. So the final thing will be 1 divided by 2 H11 or a11 here and a12 here plus then I will write 1 by half under root of h11 a11 minus a12 whole square plus 4 times a12 whole a12 square. Okay, so similarly we will have for this guy e minus, the only difference will be instead of plus here it will have minus here. So that is the another solution. So we will have two solutions, and that's how we solve this two. This is very easy to solve. That's how we get these two uh, solutions. And the matrix, what it does, I'm sorry, the magnetic field, what it does, it contributes to the off diagonal elements. Let us say we do not have magnetic field, then both these solutions, they will remain same. Okay, so then that's when we get degeneracy. And if we have magnetic field applied to the system, then we basically get two different solutions with an energy gap between them. Okay, that's what's happening. So you will notice, let us notice a little bit interesting aspect about this eigenvalue. So if we look at this eigenvalue, in fact, let me write down in a more simpler form. Let me write down this way. So okay, yeah, even here, if I write down, so let me first just to make it simpler, just to look at the structure of it. Let me call this a naught for a time being, or let me call it some energy naught, e naught. Okay, this is e naught plus, then I have 1/2 of then I have this guy a minus 1 a11 minus a12 square plus 4 times a12 square. And similarly for e minus, I will have e naught minus times 1/2 of square a11 minus a12 square, okay, plus 4 times a1 square. So you will notice one thing, that if we forget about this first part, this solution, no, because we will have this total energy, we will have a total energy in the system, and these are the two eigenvalues. This is first eigenvalue, this is the second eigenvalue. But if we write, there's a geometry associated with these two solutions, you will see what's happening is that if we forget about the this part, off diagonal part, let's say this guy, this guy, I'm sorry, here we should have 2 2. Let's say this guy becomes 0. What happens in that case? We have just this part left. But in case you have this off diagonal element also present, it looks like I can represent this as an element, and then there's another element over here. I will have to show to you guys, but it looks like this equation will look like I can represent it. I have to properly represent it, but it gives me a for equation of the hyperbola. Okay, so it will give, you will see the geometry associated with the solution is hyperbolic geometry. So Now how to get that hyperbolic geometry, or understand that, so we have to properly write down these elements. But even if you look at it, you will see under, even under square root, we have these elements. Let's say I have a11 minus a22 is some number which is getting squared, and then I have another 4 times, then there is a real number which is also getting squared. Okay, so I can, and that full thing is equal to some constant which is the eigenvalue e minus. So if I rearrange it, I will get a hyperbolic equation. So why I want to make a point here about these two energy levels, which is important. I just want to mention it. So what is happening is that these two solutions, if you solve this equation fully, you will see these two solutions look like this. Okay, and what is happening between as you keep on increasing the magnetic field, this becomes more and more hyperbolic. The curvature start increases. And the only point, we don't need to get in the geometry of the solution and all that. What I want to say, that as you keep on increasing the energy magnetic field, these two energy levels, they keep on going away from each other. Okay, and this particular thing I want to mention, because this is very important and you would not have heard about it. It's called level repulsion. So we have not got into full details of it, but I just want to mention it, that if you take a two level system, to begin with, both these states are same, they are degenerate, they are at least at two, they are at same level. But as you start applying the magnetic field, this level which was same, these two levels were same in the beginning, they start going away from each other. Okay, so the level repulsion starts coming into picture. Now you have heard about charges, no charges, electromagnetic charges, they are having repulsion with each other. You have heard about Coulomb's law and all that, you know about those things. You know about magnetic poles, they are repulsing or attracting each other. But you have never heard that the eigen values or the eigen levels themselves, they can also have a repulsion. But here is this property, very interesting phenomena, and I just wanted to mention it so that you can take a look and get into the details of it. But this is what's happening, and it is very, very interesting phenomena, that in quantum systems, there is an actual repulsion between the eigen vectors, I would say, or the eigenvalues themselves. There's a bit of a repulsion. And as you keep on increasing the magnetic field, or in mathematical terms, as you keep on increasing the off diagonal terms, the level repulsion increases. Okay, and this is very, very interesting. It has something to do with, I don't know how many people have heard about something called a quantum phase transition, and this quantum phase transition has something to do with level repulsion. Okay, so this is a very, very interesting phenomena in physics, but it entirely comes from the fact how these eigenvalues or eigenvectors are interacting with each other. And I mentioned that there is even at the level of the eigenvalues, there's a repulsion. I have never heard of attraction between them. There's always a repulsion. They try to go away from each other. Okay, so I am sorry, I will not be able to get into the full details of this full problem, which we will see if we get time again. But I wanted to cover some of these details today. Okay, I wanted to see just to talk to you guys about, because it is not, when whatever textbooks you will take, they somehow do not talk about two level systems, which to me looks very surprising, because two level systems are the simplest systems to understand. Okay, so today's discussion was about how the polymetry, how there are different two level systems in nature, and many in fact all of them are very, very interesting. I talked about spin-half object, I talked about qubits, MRI, magnetic resonance, then there are other examples of resonance which we do in laboratories. All of them can be understood if we just solve these two level problem. Okay, so, and solving this two level problem, it's basically 2 by 2 matrix. We can, all of us know how to diagonalize the 2 by 2 matrices, so we can get these eigenvalues. However, my point was not just to solve this problem, just to solve this matrix alone, which you can anyways do. However, the fact that if you look at these two eigenvalues, there is some bizarre phenomena which is happening over there, which is the repulsion between the two eigenvalues. Okay, and this is very, very interesting, and it has many other implications, lots of implications in physics. This level repulsion comes in many places. I just gave one example about a quantum phase transition. Okay, but it happens in many other places. Okay, so I think we will stop here today. We had a bit of a interruption in the beginning, but I think this is the main uh, message for today's lesson, that we should take a two level system as slightly more seriously, and start building our intuition. As I said, we just build this intuition what happens without solving the full details of two level system, that you start having these oscillations between those two levels. Okay, and then we can, I mean, if we follow that level, if we see, if we now the next step would be to solve the Schrodinger equation for the system. Let's say I have a Hamiltonian for these two states. Now I solve the Schrodinger equation and ask the question, what will happen, what kind of time dependence will they develop? Okay, and you will see very interesting things happen. As I said, Rabi oscillation is one of them, and similarly in a spin system, spin situation, a Lorimer frequency, Lorimer precision starts developing. So all those things start happening. Neutrino oscillation is there, or Josephson current is there. All of them happen in these two level systems as you look at the dynamics of them. Okay, so I would encourage you guys to look at these two level systems. You can, because I don't know how far we can take these things. We will have to come back to other topics also. And the next thing in line is to understand. Today I just wanted to talk briefly about, if we have to understand a quantum system which is a two level system. Understanding the quantum two level system is basically understanding its eigenspectrum. Now the question, now the next question which comes to us is, what is it, why is it that eigenspectrum is so important? First thing. And what exactly is it? How do I get a physical, because mathematically I know you I mean, we know these definitions, that in eigenvalue equation you have an operator acts on a its eigenstate, it gives basically the same state. That part we understand, that's pretty simple. However, what's a more challenging or more interesting piece of it is that, what is it, why is it that, these things are happening? Why is it that eigenvalues are becoming important, especially in the quantum physics? That will take us to the discussion of eigenvalues and the eigenvectors. Okay, I think that's what we will do in the next session, and we will take it on. Okay, so I think I will stop here. Let me know if you have any questions. We two level system is a huge chapter in quantum mechanics. It's a story in itself. I i have not, definitely I have not touched it upon, we cannot go into lots of details because of some time restrictions. However, I did following thing, that I introduced you to two level systems, and you can now go ahead, you can explore these systems a little more. And in fact, at the end of this course, we are offering some projects, and I think I would suggest to this, some of you can take this project of exploring different two level systems, like a two level system in quantum computation, two level system in magnetic resonance, two level systems in NMR based quantum computation. So there are many different situations which we can explore. It's a detailed project which we can get into the details. But to understand quantum dynamics, I think the best way is to understand these two level systems. See how, what happens if I solve a Schrodinger equation for this two level system. Because if you solve it for a particle in a box, that is interesting, that's good example. However, it does not have a lot of contact with realistic situations, while as two level system is a very simple system to understand. However, all of these two level systems are realistic. You are actually solving a physical system. You may be looking at any of these physical systems which I talked about. Okay, and I mean, you can get understand the full physics of that particular system. Okay, so I think, but I will, let's leave it for the projects at the end of the this course. And I'll be really happy to explore this with some of the students who are interested in taking it up. Okay, so let me close this one here. I will just go back to the questions if there are any. Okay, somehow somehow there are no questions today. It seems all of us are very comfortable with these things. Okay, then that way it's good. Thanks for joining the session today, and hoping to catch you up soon. But still, you can go through these things. If you have any questions, please let us know. Thank you very much, and talk to you very soon. Bye bye for now.